John Chicky Donahue, a former Marine, sits in a bar with his closest buddies in Inwood, New York City in 1967. The colonel, who runs the establishment, mentions that Chicky hasn't paid his tab yet. Due to the fact that he lives with his parents, grandmother, and sister Christine, Chicky is revealed to be a bit of a slacker. One morning, Christine comes screaming into the kitchen to tell them that Johnny, an old friend who was serving in the Vietnam War, was killed in battle, while their father, who also served in the military, and Chicky are staunch supporters of the troops. Christine is against the war. When Chicky and his buddies go to Johnny's burial, he finds out that Tommy Minogue, Will Hockman, a close friend, has been listed as missing in action. Chicky walks out of the funeral home and thinks back to her time with Tommy as they pursued a cab. After the burial, Christine and some other protesters are in a park with Chicky and his friend Red to voice their opposition to the war and President Lyndon B. Johnson's draft. The reason Christine and her friends disagree with Chicky and Red is that the two see their military friends as heroes, whilst the others think they are being forced to fight and die. During a brawl between the lads and several onlookers, Red is knocked out cold, necessitating Chicky's removal. Red and Chicky return to the bar with the colonel and the rest of their cronies. They express a desire to discover a means of cheering up their friends who are in the military and transferring to them the experience of currently enjoying a beer. This inspires Chicky to consider flying out to Vietnam by himself to bring his friends some beer. Chicky then seems to change his mind about this, which only serves to reinforce his friend's perceptions of him as someone who talks about doing something but never actually achieves his objectives, such as graduating from high school. So no one really expects him to go to Vietnam. After learning of Chicky's intention to travel to Vietnam, Tommy's mother pays the Donahues a visit and asks him to give Tommy his dog tags when he finds them. He chooses to join the journey after realizing that this implies that people are counting on him for something. The colonel gives him a large duffel bag, which he fills with beer cans. Chicky boards a cab and leaves, despite Christine's best efforts to persuade him otherwise because she knows he is entering a potentially hazardous area. Chicky travels to Vietnam by boat. Collins is overjoyed to see him when he finds him, until the men's hire officer enters and reprimands Chicky for being there. Ridiculous. Chicky stays at the Caravel Hotel in Saigon before continuing his voyage, where he discovers several Americans and Britons at the bar, along with a war photographer by the name of Arthur Coates, Russell Crowe. The rest don't feel the same way as Chicky does despite his continued support for the war. The bartender informs him that only the military is able to cross some regions of the nation when he says he needs to get to Elsie Jane. Then Chicky finds a military caravan and boards it. When Chicky gets to a base, he persuades the troops there that he is a CIA agent and needs a special vehicle. He is transported to Elsie Jane, where he seeks out his friend Rick Duggan, Jake Picking. The enemy fires at Duggan as he chases after them after receiving a call from Duggan's top officers ordering him to meet them where Chicky is. He arrives at the others, but when Chicky appears to surprise him, Duggan reacts angrily at Chicky for almost killing him for some beer, and also berates himself for being foolish enough to visit a conflict zone for this assignment. As Duggan and his team return to the battlefield and begin firing on the Viet Cong, Chicky joins them. He joins Duggan and his team in the morning for a picture, which is delivered to him. Due to the requirement for Duggan and the other to keep moving forward in front of the enemy, the two buddies separate ways. Two CIA agents, a prisoner, and Chicky are all placed on a helicopter. After landing, the agents start to doubt Chicky. One of the officers informs him that he may leave his station to accompany Chicky when he goes inside the base to request a ride to Saigon, so he may take a boat back home. Chicky realizes the agents are pursuing him when he glances outside and sees the cop driving a prison caravan. Chicky flees into the woods, where he is pursued by the others. He stays hidden until they stop hunting for him and move on. A young youngster who is playing in the streets when Chicky stumbles across him is afraid to see another white man. As dusk falls, Chicky stumbles upon a herd of elephants fleeing napalm. Kevin Looney McClune, an old buddy, discovers him will rob. McClune and his men give Chicky a lift back despite being told to proceed in the opposite direction of where Chicky is going. Chicky delivers McClune his beer as he boards a helicopter. He arrives at the embassy. He encounters a woman there who ultimately assists in getting him a seat on a flight leaving Manila the next day. Coates and the other reporters from earlier are still drinking there as Chicky comes to the Caravel Hotel. To demonstrate that he actually carried out his assignment, he shows them the photograph of himself taken at Elsie Jane. Coates buys Chicky a drink while talking to her about their work, chronicling the conflict and his thoughts on the current state of affairs. The Viet Cong then start to attack, and an explosion can be heard. People are left dead on the streets, including Hugh, as Chicky and Coates rush out together. Chicky and Coates are still traveling by daybreak. Coates captures the aftermath of the carnage, as several soldiers and civilians are found dead. Chicky's perspective on the entire conflict is affected by the photos. Chicky searches for one more friend, Bobby Pappas, as the two drive to an army depot. Despite being hurt, he is glad to meet Chicky. Chicky is able to contact someone who would fly him home thanks to Pappas, who also informs her that Tommy has passed away. After giving Pappas his beer, Chicky and Coates part ways. Along with the coffins of the troops who have died, Chicky is flown home. When Chicky returns home, his buddies and the colonel greet him with open arms, but he informs them that his perspective on the war has changed. He says he has one more item to complete before joining them for drinks. To return Tommy's tags to Mrs. Minogue, he pays her a visit. Chicky tells her inconsolably that it is his responsibility that he went out there, and that he should have allowed him to be afraid to enlist, because else he would still be there, even though she is grateful that he did try to find Tommy. Mrs. Minogue gives Chicky a hug without holding it against him.